Okay, so welcome to day 3 of our online learning, and we are going to continue with greatest common factor, except today we are actually going to include the variables. So if you will notice, we have 6a to the fourth plus 15a squared, and so yesterday, we can actually jump back real quick, we had negative 2x squared and then just an 8. So the second term was a constant. It did not have a variable, but today we are shifting to where both terms have a variable. And so we will notice that one is a to the fourth and one is a to the second. And so we will always pull out the number of the smallest exponent. So once again, I'm a visual person, so you guys know this since you've had me in class, but the way that I like to think about this is when we have 6a to the fourth, we really have a times a times a times a. That's what a to the fourth means. So we really have 6 4a's plus 15 and then a squared, which is a times a. So 2a's. So we always pull out the smallest number because we got to remember that when we're talking about the GCF, we're talking about the greatest common factor or the greatest amount they share. So when it comes to the variables, 6a to the fourth has 4a's and 15a squared has 2. So this one has 2a's. So the most that we can take out of our a to the fourth is also 2a's. That's how many a's they share. So therefore, we're going to pull out a squared. And then we just go back to doing what we were doing yesterday, which is finding the GCF between 6 and 15. So if we have 6, create us a little T-chart. We got 1 and 6, 2 and 3. And then we have 15. We have 1 and 15 and 3 and 5. And so with these smaller numbers, the factors are something that you just got to know. I'm actually going to post another video that goes along with this one to show you how to use Desmos in order to find your factors, but we'll come back to that later. So now we have 6 and we have 15. So we need to figure out what the greatest common factor or what the largest number those two have in common is, and it is going to be 3. So therefore, we're also going to pull out a 3 from the 6 and the 15. So now we have 3a squared that we pulled out. So now 3a squared times what? Use orange. Times what will give me 6a to the fourth? Well, 3 times 2 will give me 6. And if we have a squared on the outside and we need a to the fourth, how many a's are we missing? And it tells us right there we're missing 2 a's. So we have 2a squared plus 3 times what will give me 15a squared. So 3 times 5 will give me 15. And since we already have 2 a's, we're done. So in order to completely factor this problem, oh gosh, sorry about that. Seems my pen's a little messed up. Got some buffering. But you get 3a squared parentheses 2a squared plus 5. And I know that has got a lot going on with it, but this is just the first example. And so hopefully the next one will look a little bit cleaner and a little bit easier. But we just got to remember that the numbers or the coefficients work the exact same as they did yesterday. The only thing new that we are introducing now are the variables. So if you wanted to, you could factor this thing back out. And so 3a squared times 2a squared is going to give you 6a to the fourth. And 3a squared times 5 is going to give you 15a squared. So it gives us exactly what we started with. So now you know you are correct. So now, example 2. So with this one, there's two things we got to notice. One, once again, we have variables in both terms. We have r's, but you also have a negative out front. And remember, anytime we have a negative out front, that tells us that we are going to also have to factor out a negative. So go ahead and pull the negative out. And now our first term, negative r squared, is really just r times r. So it has two r's. And then you have second term, which just has one r. So how many r's do they have in common? Well, since one term only has one, they only share one r. So you're going to factor out an r. Now, it's negative r squared, which we really know is just negative 1r squared. So this time, we are actually not going to factor out a number. In reality, we do factor out a 1, but negative 1r is the same thing as negative r. So negative r times what will give me r squared, and that is simply just r. And then negative r times what is going to give me 4r. Well, it already has an r, so we need the 4. And we also have to remember that we're trying to get a positive 4r. So we're trying to get our parentheses to keep the same sign as up top. So therefore, we're going to have to multiply by a negative, because negative r times negative 4 is going to give us that positive 4r that we're looking for. And so this will be your final answer. And if you wanted to check it, we could do negative r times r, which is going to give you negative r squared. Oops. And then we have negative r times negative 4, which is going to give us positive 4r. So it checks. And so that is the only thing that we've added today is just the variables. But the biggest thing is just to remember to always take out the least amount of exponents that they share.